Real quick, Eunique, are you there? I just want to check in, see if you're there.
I am. I'm here.
Awesome. Hello, Eunique.
And
Thank
I'm in
you.
video.
Yes, awesome. So, Jesse, again, thank you so much for coming on. Now, Jesse is one of three artists that are being featured with this program. Is that correct, Eunique?
Yes, that is.
Fantastic.
We have a full seasonal lineup.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then if you can, swing into this program and what you're aiming to do with it. I'll let you go, because you have a lot to say. I know you do.
I'm waiting. I know. So, this program was really just something that was thought up of a bunch of people talking about how to utilize space and activating creative space, right, in downtown Phoenix. And I had been working as a collab with several designers for the last 2 years. And we were trying to think of innovative spaces that brought us to the urban downtown area. And we realized it was really hard to get space. Like, you either had to know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody. And so when I was approached to at least join the board and be able to bring my expertise, because I am a designer and I am a working artist, and I also am an application analyst. So I have all these layers to me, and I'm very systems minded. And so when I was asked to be a part of the board, I was like, this would be a great opportunity to really impact Native voices in contemporary spaces like this. And I just kind of took it upon myself to join it and do the hard work behind that, and start rethinking how to create systems that were inclusive and diverse. And then also being a part of the board itself, just learning the process, right? Because they have access to different areas that I don't normally know about, and or communities don't really know about. And so really it's been a really amazing partnership, because as soon as I joined, there were all these ideas of like, hey, we want to do an artisan market. Like, what if we do a festival that celebrated Indigenous artists that make products? And there are tons of product makers out there, people that weave baskets or make jewelry or print T-shirts, make planners and calendars. Like, there's just a plethora of Indigenous people who are creating things to sell. And so we brought them downtown, and that's kind of how the idea started. We saw the empty space, and the mural needed to be painted over because we were using them as more as like marketing material.
Right.
And so I was like, hey, can we invite an Indigenous artist and have his work be put up there? Somebody that's emerging, because Chico, which this lovely container that we're in.
Yes, I was going to ask about the container. Yes.
Yeah. The container is like in this really cool space. And I'm pretty sure you guys mentioned that we're near like the old Revolver Records store that used to be here. Well, right in that area to the side is 4 containers, and 3 of them are gallery spaces. And those were used. Those are used by Chico to showcase emerging artists. So it just all like came together at the perfect time. It was really cool.
So real quick, who are the which organizations? Because there's a few of them here. I want to make sure we get them all kind of listed out. So who's involved with making this happen? I know you personally are, of course, but which organizations and what are they? What piece do they have of this? What do they contribute to? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So Roosevelt Row. Amazing partner, obviously working for the community to create different spaces of artistic expression. And then you have Chico Gallery, the containers that we're in, and they also partner with Roosevelt Row.
Okay.
And then there is Indigi Design Collab, which is the collab that I am a part of and kind of founded and started to bring designers all together.
Okay.
And then there's Indigenous Community Collaborative. And Indigenous Community Collaborative was one of those groups that I had seen some of their work, and we actually had met at the Indigenous Artisan Festival in this space. I want to say in March of last year, maybe February of last year. Mm-hmm. And a friend connected us, and we were just standing there. She's like, this is amazing. And I asked her what she does. And you'll get to hear about a lot of the stuff that she does within the community, but she's very skills focused, and I'm all about skill sharing. So I love the fact that designers are self learners, and we are always trying to learn new tech. We're always trying to learn new programs, and we're always trying to link them together. So it's one of those things where I was like, hey, this is that skills amplification that we can start really spreading among designers, well, indigenous designers, because a lot of times we think that we're stuck in the modalities that we know, which is painting and sketching and drawing and other things like that, photography. And when you learn design, or when you go to school for design, or when you even take online classes, right, you begin to learn how that creative work can then be amplified on all different kinds of media channels. And so I invited her to be a part of a space activation that we did in this space in the parking lot. And it was to broadcast Native voting information, and also to celebrate Indigenous voices. Nice. And so we had a live show, and it lasted a whole hour. It was amazing. We actually had speakers. We had a projection show.
Wow. Yeah.
We have some designers that have the capability of doing some projection mapping. And so we just decided to make this place glow and then express ourselves in the best way we knew how.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so fascinated, and I'm in love when I find all these different organizations working together to make just this multi-layered, expansive, and interactive experience for the community. I think that is so important right now. And the fact that you have all these different organizations, they all have different skill sets, and they offer different resources, and you're figuring out how to put them together and make them work in a synergetic, way. And I was telling you over the phone the other day that I want to master the art of social alchemy, as far as taking different people and mixing them together and figuring out how they can work together and how they can create a whole new thing with working with one another. And seeing other people do that it's just music to my ears. So this is really cool. Now, this is all year long, right? This particular program? Is that,
yes.
Okay.
The program was designed to be a way for emerging artists that don't necessarily have spaces to paint large pieces of, the mural work that's up there. And because Native peoples and Indigenous peoples really respond and really understand the flow of nature and seasonal stories, we have certain seasons for certain stories, and there's a certain time to tell these stories. And so I thought it would be really cool if we had a place that created impact through the culture that exists and the storytelling that we tell through our visual designs. And as you can see, Yazzie was one of those that we saw his artwork, and we were going through the jury process. And the sad thing is we couldn't choose all of them. There were some amazing artists that were also part of this, the lead up to this, and we could only choose 4. But then what we realized was, wow, there's some really great opportunity to really showcase and highlight artists as they come out and as they appear in a place, and then the place moves. So it created this temporary installment of artwork, which then we can get excited about every single time, just like how we get excited about summertime, or we get excited about spring, we get excited about winter, we get excited about fall. And so we chose to split it up into the seasons so that we can create excitement around that.
Now, how did you pick Jesse as the spring, right? Spring season for him?
He's more, I think, the early winter. We go into, the spring is going to be March to March.
Oh, okay.
April, May.
Okay.
And then after May is the summertime. So.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, so this is like how Sunday is like the first day of the week, and I always get kind of thrown off by that. I always think it's Monday. It's kind of the same thing for me. But so how did it come about where you're saying, okay, this is the mural we want to represent this season, it's specifically in Jesse's situation?
Yeah. So with Chico Roosevelt and Indigenous Design Collab, we decided to choose a jury, and we wanted to choose community members. And so Chico chose one of their longstanding artists. We call him Ollie. And then Melody was chosen from Indigenous Community Collaborative. And then we had, let's see who was from Roosevelt Row. Nicole from Roosevelt Row was also part of the jury panel, and then myself,
Cool.
and then Janet is part of Chico. So we had a nice group
A lot
of
of people.
5 people that were talking about this.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being a really cool conversation because we knew we wanted it to be for emerging artists, but emerging artists are not, we can't really define that in a very structured way, right?
Right.
So we kind of had to look at it in different lenses and say, well, if you were an emerging person, you were emerging into either a new skill set, or you were changing modalities, or you were emerging from school and you wanted to start a career in art, or like Jesse emerging from prison and having to reaccustom himself into a new lifestyle, right? And so all those terms we came to kind of talk about, and I don't think those terms have really been discussed on quite the level we did. And so when we went through all the artists, we made sure that, that they didn't have prior work or large scale work that was out there, even though we would love to be able to showcase them. We really want people that don't necessarily or have ever had the opportunity to paint the mural. And so we really wanted to ensure that it was somebody who was emerging. And we also looked at, we had the form itself had Latinx community and then also the indigenous community be a part of this. And so that was the cool thing to have representation from all sorts of people that come from this land. If you remove all the borders, we are people that belong to this land, and we have stories like generations and generations before. And so why not celebrate that together through these stories?
Yeah, no, I think that's the big, and each artist you have, by the way, is from a different indigenous background, or I believe you have one Latinx background as well. I believe it's the point is you have this wonderful scale of showing, oh, here's all of these different, groups who have been contributing to the culture and to the space for millennia, and to have that full scope and represent it through emergence and through, large scale paintings and murals. It's incredible. And I love the idea of, especially for early or late winter, early spring, this idea of someone coming out of somewhere very dark and cold and emerging back into the light, and making something wonderful and poetic with it, So this is really cool. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the pods too, when people could start to expect to see that, and when they could start interacting with that space.
Yeah, so the container galleries themselves are not being programmed because of COVID, and it is a small space. And so we are really making cautious decisions on how to join all of these space activations. And so right now, I think what's happening is we're focusing on the outdoors because that's the safest possibility if you set criteria, right? But for Chico, what I understand is that they do want to start programming, but it's going to be when the numbers start decreasing and they can actually bring artists into these spaces and ensure their safety.
Right.
And like I said, follow Chico galleries, follow them on Instagram, go to their webpage or website. And if you are an Indigenous or Latinx artist and you want to show in these cases, email them, say, hey, I've got artwork and this is my website, and just be proactive when you want to show your work. I think that's the message that this all brings, is that we all have to meet halfway. We all have to meet each other where we're at. And so they're going to be looking for more artists to put into these containers. I did an installation piece actually maybe 2 years ago in these containers. And that's actually how I got to know Chico Gallery. And so it was my opportunity to be able to put something up that I've never really had any space to do. And it was an installation. And so it was cool. It was amazing. So it's that opportunity is there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's good that, it's good to know. I wanted some context for that because I'm curious to check these out, personally, but also just, for people to know that, and if I'm not mistaken, Chico had they've been doing digital galleries. Is that correct? Like
Yeah,
3D. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I saw that and I was like, yo.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So they are doing galleries, but you can join online, and it's really cool because you can walk around in the space, and then when you approach an art piece, because it's all 3D. I don't know if it's augmented reality, meaning that you can put on VR, but I know that you can watch it and you can move around in the space from your cell phone or from your computer. And so when you go up to an art piece, you can click on it, you can learn about the artists themselves, you can zoom in, zoom out. There's all kinds of cool features with being a part of this new digital age. And yeah, and just to mention, these galleries, I think, are usually programmed for first Fridays and for third Fridays.
Yes,
so when it gets back online, that's going to be the biggest part there. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we should really do a stream sometime just showing that, because that's really.
Oh, we would love to.
Oh, I would love to do that, because I've been seeing those for the last couple of months, and I'm like, that is next level. So, and we actually just had a crypto artist on. What was it? I think 2 or 3 streams ago, and he had very similar type of thing. It was a sandbox template, but it's pretty much just a 3-dimensional. You can walk through and interact with the art pieces, digital space, and I think that's, I don't want to lean too hard on that, in the future. I think we should still do in-person things, but seeing that technology and seeing how like you can really change an environment and emphasize people's work it's incredible. So that's something to look forward to.
That's for later. That's a conversation for later.
Yeah, no, I get carried away.
I'm on that page.
I get so carried away with that. So, can you tell me a little bit about some of the upcoming artists that we'll be seeing throughout the year? If we have, I think we have enough time. You can just briefly like summarize each one. Definitely. Tell us a little bit about.
So we have Danny Upshaw, which will be putting up his piece in April.
Okay.
And then after him will be Zachary Justin, who is Tohono O'odham and is from the Gila River community. Nice. So he lives actually outside of the urban space, and so he's bringing his perspective. And I can't wait to see his stuff. And then next after that is Oni Cora. And so she is our Latinx artist and has a really, really cool visual that she's sketched up for us. And so we've seen highlights of what they're going to do. And so right now we're kind of building up the momentum of presenting their work when the time comes. So hopefully you will be able to interview them as well when their art is up.
I would love to. Now, do you guys tease the upcoming works, or how do people find out when the next one is up or how it's reviewed?
So you can follow Indigi Design Collab, or you can and then follow Roosevelt Row and then Chico Gallery, and we will be teasing a little bit of the story, and then the artists that are going to be painting. And of course, when the painters are here and they're putting up the work, they have about a week to put up their work. And when they do, we film, we do highlights, we try to amplify. As designers, that's our role, is to create media, create content. And so why not celebrate the artists that are doing that? So we'll be doing all of that prior to the launch of each mural.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I especially with the design, because your focus. Did you say your original focus came through design? Is that correct? So yeah. How is, and I should have asked this earlier, but now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, wait a minute. What is that transition like to go from something very, very artistic, very, very much emotional and intuitive to something that's a lot more logistical and strategic? Is there a huge jump for that, or is that a relatively simple leap for you, or what did that feel like?
For me, it's a simple leap because I'm a systems thinker. I am an application analyst, and I understand systems and the way different things can connect. A lot of what we're doing right now is experimenting, kind of like learning. Once you learn a new program and it has a capability or functionality, we're like, hey, let's test it. Let's try and do this. And Brian Skeet, who's one of our main designers within Digi Design Collab, he is an amazing research and developer. And so it's one of those things where he taps into something and then he tells me about it. And then I start thinking, and I'm a strategy thinker. So I am always strategizing about how to create space that is different than anybody else has ever seen. And I love the experimental parts of things and the temporary parts of things. And so for me, the activation is actually the art for me, because I get to create something. I create energy and make a space and define a space, and then it disappear, kind of like clouds disappear on certain occasions. But there was like a lot of energy pouring that day, and it just poured rain, right? And so that's kind of my flow. So I am able to layer both things, the artistic side and the systems thinker side and the strategy side. And so I feel like that's what's really been at least what I can empower people with, is say like, hey, that's a great idea. If we turn this into a program and then we amplify it in this way, and then I put my design hat on, this can work in a very systematic way. And then you bring all these people in and just tell them like, hey, this is your role. This is your role. This is your role. And then it works.
So you it just works. Yeah. I mean, in so many words. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of detail behind that.
Yeah.
I'm sure but it seems that your art form, at least, and you can stop me if I'm wrong here, it seems your art form is systemizing, like figuring out how to amplify everyone around you through very precise systems. And I mean, I don't know what it's like to get a program off the ground. I imagine it's not easy. If it's anything like applying for a grant or any of that stuff, I imagine it's not a straightforward process. I mean, maybe, you know what I mean? So
it's very circular. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest part of like what I come with, is when you have Indigenous people rooted in places, we think differently. We don't think linear at all. And this is something that I've noticed about Native people and just talking with them and how they flow, especially artistically, is that we operate in a very cyclical way. And the way we learn and the way we teach our communities, the way we teach our young, all of this is a natural flow. And we've learned how to do this in a very circular fashion. And so design is very much the same way, where you have an idea and you create a prototype, and then you test it, and then you go through the whole, well, did the testing work? Did we get feedback? Well, maybe we need, and then so you're constantly going in a circle, but your destination is always towards a solution. And that solution is what we're focused on. It's like, hey, how do we activate a space?
Yeah.
How do we create art? How do we amplify? So it always starts with that question, and that's the design thinking skill.
Yeah, and
we're trying to teach that.
And it sounds like there's no coincidence there that you tie that into the idea of associating these projects with the seasons and everything following that cyclical path. I imagine all of that's one in the same intention. Yeah, that's so cool to see how layered that same thought can go with like everything you do, with every little detail. You can still see that echoed. That's really cool.
Yep. But sometimes we don't even notice it.
I bet you're like, oh, there's one. That's awesome.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I just did that in a very cyclical way, but it happened.
Yeah.
Famous Melody.
That's awesome. No, I think I hear Melody now. Eunique, I really appreciate your time. It was great to get you have so much energy, and I want to keep talking to everyone for hours, but I really appreciate your time and giving us some insight on what y'all are accomplishing out there, and what everyone is just making it happen, and so thank you so much. Now,